Hello, good people of YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about battleships, as you can tell by the title of the video. And this is, it is a response video to NoZoup's video that he put out a couple of days ago, titled The Slow Death of Battleships and World of Warships. It was really interesting to hear a larger, much more well-known YouTuber talk about some topics that I've touched on several times in the past couple of years. And I took a couple of notes when I was watching his video, and we're not going to talk about all his topics. Please go watch his video so you can see his argument in full. We're just going to talk about some things that I think are really big issues when it comes to the current state of battleships and World of Warships. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on them, and then I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insight into my current experience as a battleship main. Some of you guys that have been here for a long enough time probably have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to say when we get to that part, but please stick around for that. Before we get going, though, I do want to point out that Super, RNGBus, and Lord from our clan, TSILF, were actually in NoZoup's video in the first clip. They were in, I believe, Alaska, Kronstadt, and Venezia, I believe. And they actually got the kill on Zoop in the first clip, so that was interesting to see. But anyway, let's go ahead and get going now. So the first thing that he talks about is overpins and how he feels that there's been an increase in overpins when playing battleships in the current years. And to give you guys some context, he's talking about having just purchased the Ohio after grinding out all the Research Bureau points and stuff for that. So that's the ship that he's playing and referring to for most of the video. So yeah, I would agree with this too. The amount of overpins in battleships have certainly gone up in the past year, and this is something that I've talked about on Discord with a couple of you guys and in the comment section. And I think the main cause of this is just the type of ships that Wargaming has been introducing into the game the past year or so. And I've made jokes about this before, how now having a good armor scheme in World of Warships, it's kind of like having no armor at all. I mean, the Smolensk is the prime example of that. The thing has barely any armor now, and you can still easily overpin the ship when it's giving you its broadside. It's slightly easier now to pin it when it's angled, since they changed its armor with the IFHE rework. But still, it's incredibly frustrating to have a perfect broadside target and you overpin it, especially something like the Smolensk that's been burning you for most of the match if you're a battleship. And I originally had thought this was because I started out with the American battleship line, and they have small guns when you get up to higher tier, like tier 10 and tier 9. They have smaller guns, and their velocity is slow, so they're very good at dealing with cruisers because they do get less overpins on cruisers. But I got to thinking, like, well, I went up the Japanese line right after that, and I got the Yami, and for a very long time the Yami was my most played battleship until I got the Kerr first. And even playing the Yami, I still don't remember getting a ton of overpins like I do nowadays in the Yami, because of, again, just the type of ships and the type of armor schemes that they've been introducing into the game. And it's incredibly frustrating. It really is, because in a battleship, you have a lot more RNG to deal with than in cruisers and destroyers. And when your shells line up, you get that perfect salvo, and you do 6,000 damage when you have 16-inch guns or 17 or 18-inch guns because you overpinned. It is incredibly infuriating. So yeah, I agree wholeheartedly on that. Next topic we want to talk about is HE spamming ships, and I've covered this topic several times, and yeah, there has been just an incredibly high uptick of light cruisers that are very good at spamming HE. That's a helicopter outside. Smolensk, Colbert, Harugamo, Kitakazi, Mines, I could go on and on and on. They've gone through the roof in the past year or so. And again, when I started playing 2 years ago, the worst HE spammers were Des Moines and Zao. And I don't even think Zao would even be considered an HE spamming ship anymore because its reload's so long. It just has a very high chance of setting a fire. But yeah, those are the two worst ships for HE spam back in the day. Oh, and of course Calvados, which, as strong, it's crazy seeing what Calvados was 2 years ago and seeing what it is now. It's nuts. And again, those were the battleship's worst nightmares back in the day. At least my worst nightmares was having to deal with a Des Moines, a Zao, or a Khabarovsk. And again, now we've got triple or quadruple the number of HE spamming ships in the game. And naturally, they're going to go after battleships first because they are slow targets, they're large targets, and yeah, they can't really do too much in return, especially with the overpins now. Oh, and of course the Battleship AP versus Destroyers nerf that happened, I think, about a year ago. That, of course, hurt battleships, because now even on your overpins on destroyers, you're now doing less damage, because reasons. I made a video about that. If you want to hear my rant about that, please go watch that video. It's a little bit older, but the points still remain the same. Okay, next thing he talked about that I want to talk about too is he does mention the 10-kilometer death zone that I've said before. And that is, if you are within 10 kilometers of a battleship and showing them your broadside, you should cease to exist, unless you're in something like the Kurfürst, a ship designed to operate within that 10 kilometers. Even the Kurfürst, if you're showing broadside from 10 kilometers, you deserve to get smacked for 40 or 50k, which does happen if you do show flat broadside in the Kurfürst from that range. But yeah, a 10-kilometer death zone. You're at, and I do believe he's talking mostly at tier 10. And, of course, you could scale this down by tiers as well. But if you are that close to a battleship, particularly at tier 10, you're showing them broadside, and let's say you're in a Smolensk, and you went to do a bonsai torpedo run on a battleship. Because let's face it, the Smolensks have pretty useful torpedoes, and they've done this before. You get your torpedoes off, it either doesn't kill the battleship, or you miss a couple and you don't get to finish him off. His gun's reloaded, you're broadside because you just try to get your torpedoes off. 9 out of 10 times that Smolensk is going to survive unless he's at low health, because again, you're just going to overpin him. That's just the way it is now, and that is extremely frustrating. That Smolensk or that cruiser, that whatever ship is in 10 kilometers of that of your battleship, he goofed up, he messed up. He's in the wrong place. He deserves to die. But again, in the current state of the game, you're going to overpin him. He's going to survive and more than likely kill you. And that is beyond frustrating. Next thing he talked about is how battleships have been using more and more HE. And it's, again, yeah, I've noticed this too. Several times, if you guys been for stream or whatever in a couple of videos, I'll point it out. I'll say, why is that Montana spamming HE? Why is that? And I've seen Yammies shooting HE. The one battleship that has zero reason to shoot HE. Because it can overpin the bows of every battleship in the game. It's just face palming when I'm seeing battleships shooting HE. But then, you know, with the amount of overpins nowadays, and yeah, I can kind of understand why they are using more HE. And, you know, Conqueror kind of started that back when it was introduced. And God, that was a pain and a half. And the last thing that he talked about that I'm going to talk about is that battleships are afraid to move up. Even good battleship players are. And I gotta say, yeah, that's 100% true. If you watch the, well, you should have watched it, or maybe you're just listening to this without the video up. But the first, I think, within the first about 5 minutes of this video, I'm in the Ohio. And, oh, this is actually my first battleship game in about 3 or 4 days, by the way. So if I'm missing a couple of shots here and there, that's why. The enemy team, they took in B and C, and A, I think they took it, and there's only about 3 or 4 ships over there. And I go to move up a couple of times, but I turn around because I know if I push up and those enemy ships in B have a line of sight on me, I know that they're just going to melt me, and I won't be able to disengage. Disengaging in battleships is very hard nowadays compared to back in the day. Because, again, in the time it takes a battleship to turn around, the HE spam ships can absolutely melt you. And a lot of times this is no fault of your own, because against fires you can't really do anything. And you can balance your damage column with your heal and time it at the right time to get maximum survivability out of it. But when you've got a ship, again, like the Smolensk, that it's got 16 guns and it fires every 4 seconds, with, depending upon their build, a pretty darn good chance of starting a fire, you know, you just can't do anything about that. You can't mitigate that. And it's frustrating. Back in the day, you know, you used to be able to, you know, you would obviously get punished for having to turn around in front of the enemy fleet, but if you timed it right and were skillful about it, you could minimize that damage to where you could still be effective later in the game. Nowadays, it's so hard to do that now, especially depending upon the ship composition. So you can see me there. I do it twice. I look like I'm about to go in, and then I turn around at the last second because I'm just waiting to make sure that I have the best chance of being an effective battleship and pushing effectively. So I do agree with that. The last thing we'll talk about is my current experience in battleships. And I gotta say, I'm becoming more of a cruiser player, especially super cruisers. Because super cruisers, they're cruisers with very good ballistics on their guns. And in many ways, they're kind of becoming the new battleships because depending upon the super cruiser, between its health and its armor, it's got the tankiness of like a tier 8 or a tier 9 battleship at tier 10. And the guns are still capable of citadeling battleships. Stalingrad can citadel pretty much anything a battleship can citadel, even at longer ranges, because Stalingrad. Alaska and Puerto Rico, they're literally like little Iowas and little Montanas, and they're more maneuverable, they're quicker. The Puerto Rico has a very good armor layout. And Yoshino, I don't have that one yet, but again, it just looks like a bigger Zao, but I'm told it's not a bigger Zao, but whatever. It looks very good, and it's, they're better than battleships in many regards, and I mean, why play a battleship and get punished like you are when you could play a super cruiser and you're better equipped to deal with the challenges that battleships are facing today. And I am also playing other cruisers too, tech line ships. I'm grinding up I'm finishing the grind on the British light cruiser line, and I'm starting to go up the Japanese cruiser line as well. And another big reason for that is that I'm just so tired of being the punching bag for nothing. Before, taking damage, that's part of being a battleship. I understand that. But taking damage and for a good cause, like let's say your team's pushing or you're drawing fire while your cruisers manage to finish off their team, that is 100% worth it, and I am 100% fine with taking damage and dying if it's for a good cause. But nowadays, with ships like the Smolensk and the Worcester able to get their range out to 19 kilometers and just start melting you before you even have a chance to do anything, or your team has a chance to do anything, it's just not worth it. There's no fun in it. It's incredibly frustrating, especially when they're hiding behind an island. There's nothing you can do about. Those ships tend to have very good AA as well. So even if a carrier is involved in your match, there's not a lot they can do about it because they'll lose most of their planes going after those two ships. And then, there goes their planes for the rest of the match, and they're operating with a quarter of their squadrons for the rest of the game. And I can't blame them for not going after them. And it's a mess. It really is a mess to be a battleship right now. And is the population dying off? I haven't looked at the statistics, but from playing the game as much as I do, it looks like there's slightly less currently, but there's still a very good chance that you get in the game, and about a third to actually, I haven't seen like teams that are half battleships anymore like it used to be back in the day, but still it's very likely that a third or more of the team are still going to be battleships. So is it dying? I don't think it's dying yet, but I certainly think that when subs come out, it's going to be a very, 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 very big drop in the amount of battleships in game. And Wargaming has said that they're working on other ways that other classes can counter submarines, but I mean, I do have a feeling that will be the last straw for a lot of battleship players when subs come out, if there's not a good, effective way for battleships and other classes to counter submarines. I think that's just going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because, I still play battleships right now. But if subs come out, and again, there's not a good way to counter them, I probably won't be playing a whole lot of battleships anymore, except for maybe the GK for fun every now and then. And that's where I'm at right now with my position in battleships, and that's what I think is going to happen to them. I may be wrong, but that's just the way it looks like it's going, at least for me. And again, that's my attitude toward them. That's my position. Please in the comments down below, let me know what do you think, because I know a lot of you guys are battleship mains, and that's one of the reasons you watch my channel, because it's mostly battleship content. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. We're on our way to 15,000 subscribers. We recently passed 11,000. I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Monday. Hope you guys are staying healthy and safe at this time during this worldwide event. And hope to catch you guys in the next one.